Welcome to True Crime Threads. Today we dive into the terrifying case of a missing child and a sinister abduction network. In the small, quiet town of Maplewood, life was idyllic. The streets were lined with charming homes, each with neatly trimmed lawns and colorful flower beds. Families went about their routines, trusting their neighbors in a community where everyone seemed to know each other. Children played freely in the parks and on the sidewalks, their laughter filling the air as parents watched from a distance, secure in the belief that Maplewood was a safe place to raise a family. That trust was shattered in early 2024 when 5-year-old Ethan Reynolds disappeared without a trace. Ethan, a lively boy with a love for adventure, had been playing outside his home one sunny afternoon. His mother, Sarah, had stepped inside briefly to grab a glass of water, and when she returned to the yard, Ethan was gone. At first, she thought he might have wandered into the nearby woods that bordered their backyard, but as minutes turned into hours, panic set in. Police were immediately called, and the search began. Neighbors joined in, forming search parties to comb through the woods and surrounding areas. His bright blue bicycle, a gift from his grandmother for his recent birthday, was found overturned near the edge of the forest. The sight of the small bike abandoned on the ground sent shivers through the hearts of those who saw it. It was as if Ethan had vanished into thin air, leaving no clue as to where he might have gone. The incident quickly became the focus of local news, and within days the story spread nationwide. Flyers with Ethan's smiling face were posted on telephone poles, in store windows, and online. The community was united in their efforts, but despite their determination, no significant leads emerged. Each passing day brought more despair, and the once vibrant neighborhood was now cloaked in fear. The only clue came from a witness who had been driving through the neighborhood around the time Ethan disappeared. She reported seeing a large woman in a floral dress walking slowly along the sidewalk near Ethan's street. The description puzzled authorities, as it didn't match anyone known in Maplewood. The woman hadn't appeared suspicious at the time, but in hindsight her presence now seemed odd. This mysterious figure quickly became the focus of the investigation, but identifying her proved to be a challenge. No surveillance cameras captured her image, and no one else in the neighborhood claimed to have seen her. The case took a sinister turn as investigators began to wonder if Ethan's disappearance might be connected to something far darker than a child simply wandering off. The peaceful town of Maplewood would never be the same. As detectives delved deeper into Ethan's disappearance, they uncovered a chilling thread that sent ripples of unease throughout the nation. The woman described by the witness, a heavy-set figure wearing a distinct floral dress, was not a one-time anomaly. Similar sightings had been reported in other towns where children had mysteriously vanished in recent months. In each case, the descriptions of the woman were eerily consistent. She was always alone, always lingering near neighborhoods where children were last seen, and always gone before anyone could approach her. This pattern turned the investigation on its head. What initially seemed like a tragic but isolated incident in Maplewood now appeared to be part of something far more sinister. The FBI joined the case, assigning a team of seasoned investigators to analyze the growing evidence. They compiled reports from other missing child cases, noting with increasing alarm how many shared the same haunting detail: the presence of the unidentified woman. Despite the mounting evidence, she left behind no discernible trail. No one seemed to know who she was or where she came from. Her floral dress, once dismissed as an insignificant detail, now became a symbol of fear and dread. Law enforcement began calling her the obese phantom, a nickname that captured both her physical appearance and her ability to vanish without a trace. Media coverage of the case exploded. News outlets featured grainy sketches of the woman based on eyewitness accounts, and her image was broadcast across the country. Parents grew increasingly anxious, holding their children closer and taking precautions they had never considered before. Communities that once prided themselves on their openness became guarded and suspicious. The streets that had once been filled with children's laughter were now eerily quiet, as parents kept their kids indoors, fearful of the unknown predator lurking beyond their front doors. The FBI set up hotlines and encouraged anyone with information to come forward, but leads were scarce. Surveillance footage from neighborhoods where children had disappeared yielded no results. The woman had an uncanny ability to avoid being seen on cameras. Frustration mounted as weeks passed without significant breakthroughs. As the investigation dragged on, rumors began to swirl. Some speculated that she wasn't working alone, while others believed she might be using clever disguises to blend in. But one question loomed larger than all others: why was she targeting children? And what was happening to them? Her motives remained a mystery, as chilling as the disappearances themselves. The hunt for the obese phantom intensified, but with every day that passed, the hope of finding Ethan alive seemed to slip further away. 3 weeks after Ethan's disappearance, investigators finally caught a break that sent shockwaves through the nation. Police in a neighboring state responded to complaints of a foul odor coming from an abandoned house deep in the woods. The property was isolated, overgrown with weeds and hidden from view, its dilapidated exterior suggesting it had been uninhabited for years. When officers forced their way inside, they stumbled upon a scene that would haunt even the most seasoned investigators. The interior of the house was decrepit and eerily quiet, but as officers ventured deeper, they found a room that seemed completely out of place. The space was unnervingly tidy, filled with children's belongings, tiny shoes lined up in pairs, dolls and action figures carefully arranged on shelves, and bright, colorful clothing folded neatly on a table. The items appeared almost like a twisted collection, preserved as if they were on display. As the search continued, officers found even more unsettling evidence. Tacked to the walls were photographs and drawings, many of them depicting children playing in what appeared to be neighborhoods or parks. Some of the pictures were marked with dates and names, suggesting they had been taken over a period of months or even years. On a desk in the corner of the room, investigators found journals filled with handwritten entries. The writing was strange, written in a childlike scrawl despite being clearly the work of an adult. The entries described an imaginary world called the Haven, where the writer claimed to be a mother to lost children. She described how she was saving them from the dangers of the outside world, creating a place where they could live in peace. The delusional tone of the entries was chilling, as they alternated between tender descriptions of care and cryptic statements about punishment for disobedience. The discovery of the basement added another layer of horror. Hidden beneath the floorboards was a series of tunnels that stretched far into the surrounding woods. The narrow passageways were dimly lit, with small rooms carved out at intervals, each containing makeshift beds and blankets. Investigators theorized that the tunnels were used to move the children undetected or perhaps to hide them during searches. Despite the overwhelming evidence of foul play, there was no sign of Ethan or any other missing children. The house, while horrifying, raised more questions than it answered. Who was behind this elaborate operation? How had they managed to remain undetected for so long? And most importantly, where were the children? The discovery deepened the mystery, leaving authorities more desperate than ever to uncover the truth behind this terrifying case. Just as the nation braced itself for more devastating news following the discovery of the abandoned house, the investigation took a surprising turn. Authorities received an anonymous tip from a caller who claimed to have inside knowledge about the case. The caller's voice was calm but unsettling, delivering information that reframed everything investigators thought they knew about the mysterious woman in the floral dress. According to the tip, this woman, now infamously known as the obese phantom, was not acting alone. The caller alleged that the woman was part of a larger, secretive network called the Gardeners. This group believed they had a moral obligation to rescue children from what they considered unfit homes. They viewed themselves not as criminals but as saviors, carrying out what they believed to be a higher purpose. The group was organized, with members spread across state lines, and operated under strict secrecy to avoid detection. What was even more chilling was the claim that the woman was not the mastermind. Instead, she was a pawn, manipulated by the true leader of the group, a man named Thomas Grayson. Grayson, the tipster revealed, was a charismatic and highly intelligent individual who preyed on vulnerable people to further his twisted agenda. He had recruited the woman, whose real name was Margaret Lacey, convincing her that her size, isolation, and gentle demeanor made her uniquely suited to care for the rescued children. This revelation sent shockwaves through law enforcement. It explained Margaret's movements and methods but raised far more questions than it answered. How large was this network? How many children had they taken? And what had happened to the ones who were never found? Investigators scrambled to verify the information, analyzing phone records, financial transactions, and known connections between missing children cases. The breakthrough came when they uncovered encrypted communications linking Margaret to Grayson. These messages outlined detailed plans for abductions, safe houses, and even instructions for brainwashing the children into believing they were in a better place. Grayson had created an illusion of safety and purpose for Margaret, feeding into her delusions while maintaining complete control over the operation. Law enforcement quickly realized the gravity of the situation. This was not just about finding Margaret and the missing children, it was about dismantling an entire organization. The FBI began a coordinated effort to locate Grayson and any remaining members of the network. Meanwhile, Margaret's role became clearer. She was both a victim of manipulation and a willing participant in the horrific crimes. With the public demanding answers and the clock ticking, the hunt for Grayson intensified. The disturbing web of lies and control he had spun made him a far more dangerous adversary than anyone had anticipated. The case, which had already shocked the nation, was growing darker with every revelation. The raid on the remote Montana ranch where Thomas Grayson was believed to be operating marked a turning point in the investigation. After weeks of meticulous planning, the FBI launched a coordinated operation to infiltrate the compound, which was surrounded by dense forests and miles away from the nearest town. The nation held its breath as news helicopters captured the tense moments live, broadcasting the raid across every major network. Agents approached the ranch under the cover of darkness, ensuring that Grayson and his network had no chance to escape. The compound was heavily fortified, with tall fences, surveillance cameras, and strategically placed motion detectors. It became evident that Grayson had anticipated the possibility of law enforcement intervention and had prepared accordingly. When the FBI stormed the property, what they found inside was both horrifying and heartbreaking. In one wing of the sprawling ranch, they discovered several missing children, including Ethan Reynolds. The children were malnourished, frightened, and disoriented, kept in small, brightly decorated rooms designed to resemble nurseries. The walls were painted with cheerful murals of animals and flowers, a cruel facade that contrasted sharply with the conditions in which the children were held. Ethan, like the others, appeared to be physically unharmed but severely traumatized. The children clung to the agents, crying and begging to be taken home. It was a scene that brought even the most hardened investigators to tears. Medical teams and child psychologists were immediately brought in to assess their condition and begin the process of reuniting them with their families. Margaret Lacey was found in a separate part of the ranch, sitting in a sparsely furnished room. She appeared confused and disoriented, as if she didn't fully understand what was happening. When questioned, she claimed she had been caring for the children to save them, reiterating the delusional beliefs instilled in her by Grayson. Her role in the operation was undeniable, but her demeanor suggested she was as much a victim of manipulation as she was a perpetrator of the crimes. Grayson, on the other hand, remained calm and defiant as he was taken into custody. Authorities uncovered mountains of evidence on the property, encrypted devices, detailed plans for future abductions, and financial records linking him to others in the network. His stoic demeanor cracked only when he was confronted with the sight of the children being rescued. The trial that followed was one of the most sensational in U.S. history. Grayson was sentenced to life in prison without parole, while Margaret received a 25-year sentence after being convicted as an accomplice. The surviving children were reunited with their families, though the scars of their ordeal would linger for a lifetime. The case left an indelible mark on the nation, serving as a grim reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. While the children were saved, The emotional toll on their families and the haunting memory of those who were never found ensured this case would remain one of the most terrible crimes in American history.